Hey everyone, you're listening to Conscious Living Radio. I'm Tasha Simms. We're in Vancouver here with Mark Caron, Co-op Radio, 100.5 FM in Vancouver, Wednesday night, 6 to 7 p.m. Hey Mark, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Like I said, techie, bit of a weird techie thing going on for me. Everything from cars to printers to, I don't even want to get into it, but it's just.
Well, is Mercury retrograde? That's one of the things we always look at.
That's what everyone's, yeah.
It goes crazy.
So they say, but it's become so token. Every time things go wrong, I go a little deeper and go, what are y'all saying to me? What is it I'm supposed to get here? Anyway, I'm excited about today's show. We've got Jerry Sargeant. He's our guest. He's calling in from the UK, right? So it's like middle of the night for you. Thank you for the time zone adjustment. He is the author of Star Magic, or the founder of Star Magic Healing, and his latest book is called Healing with Light Frequencies, the Transformative Power of Star Magic. So he's an author, motivational speaker. His reputation in helping people transform their lives on a mental, physical, spiritual, emotional level, pretty extensive. And he trains others how to work with this star magic as well. So we're talking about his latest book and how to expand your consciousness, speed up the healing process. Welcome to the show, Jerry. Again, thanks for
having me
and staying awake. Like, what time is it? Midnight?
It's 20 to 1. You know what? I went to sleep for a couple of hours. I thought, you know what? I'll get a couple of hours sleep and then just get back up. And it's all good. It's perfect. Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, let's start with your book. It's a pretty interesting book, and I love the opening invitation. I'm just going to quote you. If you're ready and willing to saddle up and take a journey with me through space and the dimensional doorway that allows us to ride the interplanetary waves of our beloved cosmos, then buy it and experience it. So I'm taking that to mean that your head is not necessarily the driver on this journey, that simply thinking is not the approach that's going to help you remember your personal power. Is that what you meant?
Absolutely. I mean, we say it's rooted in love, not in logic. The power of star magic, this healing frequency that we use. Your head will get you into all sorts of problems, but your heart it's your life compass. It's always going to lead you in the direction of your dreams. And if you follow it and you just kind of surrender to it, magic unfolds.
And so if you know that dancing in this field is not from the head, right? It's something else. I'm so curious about why you feel the need to create a narrative about star magic, because that involves, it's a story, it's a narrative, right? As opposed to just the experience. I totally understand how the experience will inform how you work, but I'm curious what drove you to create a narrative about labeling it, naming it star magic, and having the explanation of what it is that way. Is that fair to ask?
Okay. I'm pretty sure I understand your question. If I don't, then you'll soon tell me. But the way I'm interpreting this is, you have to let people know what you're up to, right? If we didn't give it a name, if we didn't give it a narrative, if there was no explanation, it would just be kind of hovering around in the space somewhere, and no one would ever be able to latch onto it. So we have to come up with some kind of name, label, marketing to actually allow people the opportunity to get involved with it in the first place.
Yeah, I'll dig in. So because when you access the field or the unconscious, it speaks in that language, stories, metaphors, images. That's its language. It's not logical, as you said. So
it's code. It's all code. The way that we look at the whole fabric of the cosmos is computer code. And so, you might come to me and say, well, you know what, Jerry, I have this particular injury or this particular illness or this particular disease, or I want to shift something in my life, whether it's my business, my relationship. So whatever it is that is creating the dysfunctional pattern, within your reality field that is creating the dis-ease or whatever it is, then there must be some kind of code behind that. So what we do is we tap into that code. Now that would be a soul fragment, a soul experience, a parallel life, like a past or a future life experience, where trauma is embedded in the field in that soul's experience. So we go in, we tap the computer code and we change it. And that creates the healing on the front end. It's like, imagine you've got a website and the website is blue and you want to change it to yellow. You're going to go to your computer guy and say, listen, I want to change this from blue to yellow. So he or she is going to tap into the back end, change the computer code. And then on the front end, the website is going to make a shift. And healing's no different. Like our body and brain is a biological computer and it's downloading information 24/7, 365. So when you go in and you change the frequency, the code on the back end, it creates physical manifestations, which is no more bad shoulder, no more diverticulitis, no more tumor, no more this, no more that, for example.
We left my question though, like we're totally getting into sort of another area. So I don't feel like my question got answered, which is, I'm going to try it again. So okay. Star magic has come from your connection to the field and your unconscious, like the imagery of it. So all I'm wondering is, doesn't it sometimes create actual separation for people? Like, why can't people become comfortable with the unknown, work with their codes? That to me is like a great, again, it's a metaphor to explain how to clear something, but it's still open-ended, right? In other words, people could work with their own colors and their own, whatever it is they do, because they'd be learning to trust that they are the authority of this relationship with the frequencies or with light that they're working with. So my question to you was, is it possible that your way, and it's not to diminish it at all, but that's your unconscious that goes, it looks like this, or it, I'm naming it this, like it's more personal than collective. That's all I'm wondering. So then there's space for everyone. Do you know what I'm asking?
I think I'm getting more to the point of your question.
Yeah.
Like star magic isn't a me thing.
Okay.
Yeah, star magic isn't everyone's thing. Like this isn't something that's personal to me in any way, shape, or form. We've trained thousands of people in over 40 countries, and star magic is not a modality. It's not, it doesn't have a method in any way, shape, or form. It's a playful way of experiencing reality in the quantum field and taking the information that the universe presents you with in any given healing session, and then using that information to create rapid change in someone's reality. So this is something that every single human being can put their own stamp on, that can play with in their own individual way. You see, if I'm going to go into a healing session, and anyone that comes to our training, once they've been into the training, the way that they're going to start every training session is this: please show me something I don't know to help me facilitate the healing of this incredible human being. We're not interested in what we know. Every healing session is completely different. We're opening ourselves up to the infinite sea of potential, the infinite sea of information, by asking that very specific question. And then the universe presents you with frequency, code, pictures, images. Right. And from there you start to play the game. So every healing session you go into is going to be different. Every healing session I go into is going to be different. Every human being that we work with is a different soul, with a different set of soul's experiences. And so all of that plays out in its own beautiful and unique way. Like this array of colors and frequency and information, however it works, and then that creates a different healing session every time. So star magic is a non-disciplined or a non-systematical, disciplined way of knowing. No method whatsoever. We don't, if someone comes to me today and says, right, Jerry, I've got a brain tumor, and we work on that brain tumor and it disappears. And then tomorrow or the next week, another lady or another man comes and says, Jerry, I've got a brain tumor. I'm not going to think, well, last week I did this to Dave and it would work, so I'm going to treat Sally and Roger the same. No, it's a completely different session.
Right.
So what this means is that every single healing session is unique in its own right.
And
so,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and so every human being that comes in to facilitate healing deals with it in their own way, based on the fundamental principles that we've shared with them. So yes, star magic isn't a Jerry thing. This is something that I know. It's not something that I believe. It's something that I know is inside every human being. And we do not train anybody. We do not teach anybody. We help people remember what is already locked inside of them. Everybody knows this stuff. It's not rocket science. It's easy.
Yeah, I'm still there, but I'm going to let it go and move on, because it's the name star magic, not what you're saying. Everything you say in between, I'm going, yeah, of course, of course. You don't have to believe in what I think I'm hearing you say is you don't actually have to believe that it's star magic that you're accessing. You could believe whatever you want, and the process would still, if you're tapped in, it would work. Is that right?
Well, actually, I see what you're saying. So star magic is a very particular frequency.
It's a frequency.
It's a frequency. Now, going back 2009, I was meditating in a friend's garden in New Zealand in a pyramid, and a little space pod, it's the only way that I can describe it, landed in the garden. And there was a blue being inside of it. And I brought my light out of my body. I went and jumped in the space pod, and we flew through a tunnel for about 4 or 5 seconds, came out the other side, and we were on Alpha Centauri. There was water and beach. And anyway, to cut a long story short, I met a lot of these Lyran beings, and they downloaded these codes into my crown. And these codes were like geometrical, but they were moving and spiralistic. And they had this very particular formation where they have this like horizontal code at the top, this specific circular code in the middle, and these vertical codes at the bottom. And there's always more horizontal codes at the top than vertical at the bottom. There's always this kind of like circular stuff in the middle. And this is the kind of formation of star magic. It's like a moving, living consciousness. And when people come to our training, we download this frequency into people, and they go away and just play with it.
Mark, jump on in here.
Well, where to start? Star magic, light healing frequencies, things of that nature. The one thing that always comes to my mind is when Nikola Tesla and Einstein and a number of those great minds back in the day felt that the future of healing would be frequencies, right? And I think there's a number of different frequencies, something of which I'm certainly not an expert in, but I certainly do understand. So, depending on where we're at, the most important thing for me is the result, and I agree with you, Jerry, that, we have to call what we do something. And as we're out there in the world doing what it is we do, we put a name to it. And that's just the nature of, unfortunately, business in today's world, if we didn't have that, and branding and things of that nature. So I happen to like the fact that, star magic, it gives me something to think about. Your images, it reminds me a lot of the Merkaba work and things of that nature. And again, the most important thing is the result. Right? If people are getting the results with, if we take a name away from everything, then we would just be, and we wouldn't have names to anything to describe what we do.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm Jerry, you got Tasha, you got Mark. We're names too. And if you go beyond those names, we're just frequency. Every single name. Yeah, you have a soul signature, and both of you do. So do I. And all these frequencies are different too. We all have different frequencies. Everything does. And in a way, like, this human language is so archaic. It's so like destructive and unnecessary. But in this human 3-4D reality, when we need to be able to communicate with people and say, I'm going to meet you at 3 o'clock on Tuesday on the 6th of June, blah, 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 to have a cup of tea at this cafe, then names and labels are quite, useful, in a way. But you know, really and truthfully, once you get into the field, it's just energy. You know, it's just energy.
And that's my point, is that when we create a narrative from the energy we experience, like your story of meeting whoever you met and whatever happened in the garden, that's personal. That's what happened to you through your unconscious, through your relationship with this frequency. And so I guess I struggle when it's generalized, as if, like, I think everyone can do what you described and will have imagery and information downloaded. I understand that deeply. It's the interpretation of it that for me is separating, in terms of, if you think of global consciousness, what separates it is everyone thinks their perception of the frequencies is the right one, or the accurate one, or the special one, or the different one. Like, what if that none of that is important? What if it really is being in that field, that it's truly not for the head to understand, that you're okay without the label because it's a state? And
well, absolutely. I mean, your whole train of thinking is you know, and the kind of like road that you're going down with this is completely a waste of time in a way. You know, in terms of, we don't need labels, we don't need all of this stuff. We don't. I totally agree with you. But at the same time, in this 3D world, it's necessary. But beyond those labels and beyond those thoughts and beyond those interpretations and perspectives, everything's just the same, you know, and no one's perspective's wrong. No one's perspective's right. They're just perspectives and interpretations. And there is no good, there is no bad, there is no right, there is no wrong, there is no better or worse. It just is. Everything just is what it is, and that is, it just is. Energy, frequency, light code, information, love, dark and light. You know, one thing that is important for me to get across to everybody is that if you want to harness your potential, you've got to become whole. A lot of people want to go into the love and the light and the rainbows and then the beauty and the unicorns. That's complete and utter BS. People that get lost in the darkness, complete and utter BS. If you want to be powerful, you've got to get all of the darkness, all of the light, and you've got to bring it into the 0 point. And that's the only way that you're ever going to master your power. You know, so all of this, you know, the God and the devil is inside everyone, and they're just frequencies. You bring them in and own them, and you honor them, and you respect everything, and boom, there's your power.
What's your most powerful or favorite way to come to that 0 point? Because I'm with you with the shadow and the light. Totally necessary. And when you go like this, I get that too. What's one of your favorite ways to do that?
I mean, the easiest way and the fastest way, get in a cold shower. You get in a cold shower and you're in that 0 point straight away. You jump in the ice, boom, you are there, because there's nothing else to think about, because you are completely cold. And then you've got to bring the breath to own that moment. It's a complete mindset, complete heart set, complete anchoring in the 0 point, in the cold. But yeah, breath, meditation, you know, the cold, there's many different ways to access it. I mean, exercise is another one for me. You know, for I think it's important everyone realizes that we're physical beings. You know, a lot of people want to play around in this multi-dimensional universe, and they want to get lost in space, and they want to fly to other planets. But actually, we are souls incarnated in a physical body right here, right now, on a planet called Earth. And what is important is that we ground these frequencies down into our body on this planet, because that's how we're going to ascend. Our mission is to be able to navigate the stargates that are on this planet, because that's real ascension. Real ascension isn't just raising your vibration and moving into love and light. You know, that's a story. The real ascension is rearranging your inner geometry and your inner mathematics and harnessing that power to elevate and expand and reinvigorate or resynthesize, reactivate your DNA blueprint, your original blueprint, so that we can have Stargate access. Because we're in a time-based matrix which is controlled not just on this planet, but in a vast, wide multi-dimensional space, and Stargate access is mission critical.
What do you mean by Stargate access?
Well, we have 12 primary stargates on this planet in different locations. There are other secondary stargate systems, and the stargate systems on planet Earth give us access to other dimensional spaces within our galaxy, within our universe. And planet Earth is an amazing place with its stargate system, and human beings originally came to this planet as the guardians of the stargates, as protectors of the stargates. But there's been an interesting spiritual war taking place for billions of years, and our mission right now is to remember the true ascension mechanics that will enable us to mathematically navigate these stargate portal networks that are on planet Earth.
I know you said that it's important to ask, what am I here to give? So that this isn't just about making yourself feel better, the work that you're doing, but about actually changing things on the planet. Do you want to say more about that?
Well, I mean, first of all, every human being should be here for themselves, first and foremost. And mission critically taking full responsibility for their own power, their own frequency, and their own everything, because no one's coming to save everyone. So first and foremost, forget about the planet and focus on yourself, and realize that you're the most important human being on planet Earth. You're the most important soul in the entire universe, and that you have to make these changes yourself. I can't do it for anybody. You can't do it for anybody. You know, I've never healed a single human being in my life. All I've done is set up an environment where the healing can take place, and they self-heal. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we do is we help each other, and we guide each other, and we bounce off each other, and we mirror each other to guide each other back into our own hearts, where the real magic lies, and healing can take place. And then from there, it's an inward journey that someone has to walk and take care of themselves. And once they're at that stage where they start to work, and the magic is starting to happen, and the healing starting to take place, and they're starting to recognize their magic, their wonder, their beauty, and become whole, then they can unify with other, you know, souls on the planet that are on this same mission. And then we can start to, you know, do great work together. But ultimately, it's an individual job to start with.
Mm. And what is it? What's your personal story of what brought you to this place of working with frequencies this way?
Well, that's a long story. I mean, I'll give you my short machine gun version of it. I mean, I used to smuggle drugs for a living. I was in a very, very different space in my life. And, you know, I grew up, drink, drugs, all that stuff. I worked for a high profile criminal organization in my late teens and through my 20s. And it's something that I would never change, because it taught me so much about the world. And it really put me in good stead for what I'm doing now. You know, I experienced so much darkness, and I truly feel that the amount of, you know, the extremities of the darkness that I went through have really catapulted me into the extremities of light. You know, it's an equal measure, polarity on both sides. But I mean, there's so many experiences. I mean, one of the major ones was a car crash back in 2005, 2006. I was with my ex-wife and children traveling from a place in the north of Romania back to Bucharest airport. And the taxi that I was in ran 3 ladies over. I was asleep in the passenger seat, but I woke up, there's glass, there's wind, taxis swaying from side to side. And I remember thinking to myself, boy, we're in a bad accident. We're either going to hit the oncoming traffic or the car's going to flip. And then all of a sudden we came to a stop, and there was no cars on the road, and it was just getting daylight. And I thought, this is weird. You know, what happened? I looked at the taxi driver. He was petrified. Alea, our daughter, she was 2. She was getting out from underneath the driver's seat. There was no seatbelts in the cab. Laura had Josh in her arms, and both their mouths were full of glass. There was a hole in the windscreen. There's blood dripping down my face, but I'm not bleeding. I wasn't cut. And so I got out of the cab. I've looked about 30 meters up the road, and there was 2 ladies lying on the side of the road. I looked a bit further up the road, and there was what looked like a dead body. And as I said, these 3 ladies were crossing the road. The first one, she got hit. She came through the windscreen, hit me in the face whilst I was asleep, got flipped over the car and died. The second one had her ankles cut clean off, and the third one was physically okay. So I've walked past a lady with her ankles cut off. A man was there. He was on his phone. He's come out from a nearby factory. I thought he must have called the emergency services. I was kind of walking up the road and fixated on what looked like this dead body. And I got closer and closer, and I saw this energy hovering above the body, and I'm shaking my head, like part of me's, not wanting to see it. Part of me's wondering, is it really there? And anyway, I'm getting closer and closer, and this energy just kind of fizzles like off into the ether. And by that time, I'm looking down over this lady's body, and her legs are wrapped up over her head. She's completely mangled. And it was like someone had taken an old car to the scrap heap. Like whatever this thing was, this energy that was in the body, it was like off, like no love lost. It had just gone on its merry way. And I kind of saw this kind of separation and connection and disconnection, and what kind of happens like around this kind of so-called death experience. And I remember looking up to the heavens and saying, thank you. And I don't know who I was saying thank you to, but I was saying thank you. And it felt like I wanted a whiskey and a cigarette. And I don't drink whiskey and I don't smoke cigarettes, but it felt like a momentous occasion. And it was like the universe smacking me around the face and saying, come on, Jerry, you need to wake up, son. We're so much more than these physical bodies. We're atoms and molecules in continuous movement in space for energy. So this happened, and this kind of like, I think, knocked some sense into me, and things just started a completely different trajectory. I started having experiences, like my wife had a headache soon after this, and I took it out of her head. I don't know. I just saw it. It was green. And then I had another healing experience when I moved to New Zealand. Then I met this old guy that taught me how to meditate, had an encounter with Jesus, went to this in this spaceship to Alpha Centauri, spent some time in ancient mystery schools, being shown how to use these codes. There's a whole heap of things that happened, over the course of like 10 years. And the universe was just preparing, and this blue being that came to picked me up in 2009 called Deriving, who took me to Alpha Centauri, where I downloaded the Star Magic codes, came to visit me in 2016 once I'd set the business up, and told me that I needed to build healing centers. He showed me the Christ consciousness grid and all of these orange lights. And I said, what are those? He said, you need to build them, the healing centers. And I was like, well, if I build them, who's going to work in them? He said, you need to train people. So I ran home, opened up my laptop, designed this training program. That's when I wrote the book. And I put it online, and people just turned up from all over the world. And since then, we've done loads of trainings in many countries, trained thousands in over 40 countries. We're in the process of building our first healing center now in Romania and Transylvania. So all of these things that have taken place, and these blue beings have told me that would happen, are happening. And all I'm really doing, I'm just kind of, just following this process and just going with the flow, and everything's just working. Yeah, I mean, that's a real short version of how it all came to happen, but there's so much else to it.
I do notice, why do you think it is that so many people have their, if I can call it an awakening that you had in that moment, people seem to have it in a near death or a death kind of environment, or when they hit rock bottom, or when a dark night of the soul. It's always something profoundly intense where they have this wake up. Do you think, how do you understand that?
Well, I don't know from everybody's perspective, and everyone's like, from their own realities. But from my point of view, when I look back all the way down my timeline to when I was born, I had lots of other little kind of like tweaks and knocks and things the universe was trying to create with me. I was just too far. I was an egotistical maniac that just wanted to earn loads of money and feed my ego and buy cars and have nice watches and, all of that materialistic stuff. The universe tried to communicate with me so many times, but I wasn't listening. And I think it had to give me a massive, full on collision, literally, to be able to get me to see.
Right. I think that may be true for most people, that they need a real wake up call of some sort.
Yeah. We call it the feather brick truck story. You get a little tickle, it's a little feather. It says, hey, look over here. Then you don't pay attention to that. You get hit by a brick, and then you get hit by a truck, and it's like time to wake up. Right.
I definitely feel that. Yeah.
Do you think we're always connected to this field, and it's just that we are not remembering? Is it our lack of consciousness of our connection that actually creates a experience of a blockage or whatever it is that one is dealing with that feels not connected.
Well, this is a really interesting question, okay? And I could answer it so many different ways. You know, on one hand, yes, we are always connected to the field. But the question is, which field are we connected to? Because there are different fields of frequency that are playing out in this vast space that we're playing in. You know, like my new book's coming out in a couple of months called, you know, How to Be Superhuman. And this book is about activating your superhuman potential. And in the book, I talk about the world being like a mold, the galaxy being like a mold. Imagine, you know, you went to Amazon and you said, right, I want to buy a mold called Planet Earth and a galaxy called, you know, our galaxy and all of this stuff with all these planets and stars and stuff. And you got this big pot of energy, right? And you tip this big bottle of energy or pot of energy into this mold, like making a pyramid or something like that. So you've made this mold, and then you take back all the plastic, whatever the mold was made out of, and then you've got this galaxy and all these worlds and planets and stars and stuff. Now, this environment that we're living in is actually running off a mold that is mathematically incorrect and not in harmony with our original blueprint. And what we must do is change our inner geometry to realign ourselves with a mathematical structure that is true for nature. Because even if you look at trees, like people say that you've got this Fibonacci spiral, okay? It's in seashells, it's in tornadoes, it's in all of nature, and it looks beautiful, right? But actually that's corrupt. And the real mathematical nature of everything is a frequency field that connects you back to the 0 point. And this reality field that runs the Fibonacci mathematics doesn't connect us to the 0 point. It's a false mathematics, but our, you know, system has been running off this for billions of years, you know, since there were wars in space 750 billion years ago.
So isn't the 0 point love? Isn't the field love?
Absolutely, yes.
So what other field would I want to connect to other than that one?
Absolutely, I totally hear you, and everybody should want to connect to that. But the problem is, most people don't even realize that they're not connected to it, because the Fibonacci can be, you think that you're experiencing love, you feel that you're experiencing love, and it can be some frequency stream of love, but it doesn't mean it's the truth. It doesn't mean it's pure. We've been railroaded and brainwashed and robbed of our genetic code for so long. It's why most people are running 2, 3, 4 strands of DNA fully activated. You know, we're supposed to be angelic humans with 6 digits on each hand and 6 digits on each feet. We're supposed to have pineal glands that 4 or 5 times the size, you know, and you know, for me, the work that we do, right? I mean, I've had people come to us that have had their skulls have grown overnight, their feet have grown overnight, their hands have grown, their skulls have like grown 4 or 5 times bigger because they've downloaded these correct frequencies, and they wake up and their brain's rattling on the inside of their bed, and they come for their head, and they come for healing, you know. And so people are returning to this mathematical nature.
All right, so I got to get into the how, because this is, you know, to me, tapping into the field, becoming aware of that connection and bringing love into the physical body and that frequency and allowing it to inform my perception. All of that to me is not complicated. It's easily repeatable. It changes everything in my chemistry. It's in the flow. That to me is in the flow. But when you talk about all these things that are quite out there, right? How do you do what? How do you alter your DNA? Let's start with your DNA.
Well, you need to tap into the right mathematical frequencies. And so, you know, you'd want to connect to the primary light and sound fields. We've got a 15th dimensional time matrix. Okay, there's 3 dimensions in one reality field, 1 density, 1 frequency band. So you've got 5 frequency bands, 5 densities, 3-dimensional spaces in each one. Beyond those 15 dimensions and those 5 densities, you have what are known as the primary light and sound fields, which is source, okay, which connects into like the God worlds, the original frequency, the original kind of harmonics, which is not really light, it's sound, it's vibration, it's vibrational fields. So going through Stargate number 12, the cradle of Lyra, okay, through the Aramatena gateway, that plugs you straight into the primary light and sound field. So running them D12 currents that flow from those spaces, that is going to activate you.
And you need to label it like the way you're doing for it to be effective. Because I'm going to be really honest with you. I love experiencing the field in my body and letting it guide my heart and guide my life. But when you start talking, I'm not a numbers person. Everything about numbers, and I go, like I'm going to my breath. I'm going to go to sound. I will go to an experience. But I'm back at kind of my very original question. The interpretation of what it is where you lose me. Like it actually separates my ability to step into what you're offering.
It's not an interpretation. It's just a fact. Yeah, it's a fact, and that is the truth is the truth, and you can't change the truth. The truth is just the truth, and you don't need to interpret it, or you do. I mean, you don't need to kind of label it in any way, shape, or form, but you need to be able to tap those right frequencies. Now, if you're speaking to someone that's new to all this work, and you say, close your heart, close your eyes, open your heart, and just connect with this beautiful frequency around you. Yeah. Okay, people can go into Zen states, people can go into bliss states, okay, and people can feel really, really good. You can go and hug another human being and release massive amounts of oxytocin, okay. The nitric oxide starts to flow through the arteries, and this makes the heart swell and you feel more love. All of these things are completely real. The thing is this, okay, within this multi-dimensional field that we're playing in, okay, there are good forces and not so good forces that are at work. And if you just think that you can open your heart and that you're riding this wave of love, and just because it feels good that it is, then you're sorely mistaken. I'm not saying that it's not happening, because it may be. You may be someone that is tapping the right frequencies, but it's not accurate every single time. And I think what is important is to be accurate and to make sure that if you really want to master this stuff, you tap those right frequencies. Okay. And whether you like to label things or you don't like to label things, the fact of the matter is there is something called the cradle of Lyra up in space. Okay. Just like we have Earth here, and we have Jupiter, and we've got Venus, and we've got these planets in our solar system. Within the Lyran system, you've got Aramatena, Avion, and Vega. Okay, they make up this prism. Okay, and through those stargates is where you access the fields, the reality fields that are going to truly help you ascend. That's just a fact. Okay, how about light as nutrition? I really liked in your book when you talked about feeding. I don't think you used the word eating light, but that's what popped into my mind as I was reading it, going, yes, like light as food. Do you want to comment on that? Yeah, I mean, you know, we have this thing called human photosynthesis. I mean, you've got plants and trees, and they live off oxygen, light, and water. And I truly feel that we as humans, you know, when we're fully functioning, get to that level where we are like plants, and we're rooted into the ground. You know, we're connected. We're not like separate from everything else. Okay, we're rooted and grounded into everything. And what is happening at the moment is we are starting to feed off of more light. I mean, there are many children that are being born that don't really eat food anymore. There are some adults that are kind of remembering how to feed off of light and breath and work their bodies like an instrument in a different way. And the mitochondria in our cells are actually starting to recognize light as nutrition and starting to metabolize it and to release energy. You know, and one of the things that we recommend to everybody is like fasting. Start time restricted eating, fasting, whatever you want to call it, you know. start doing it. Like we should never be eating for more than 12 hours. You know, there's an enzyme that gets spiked in the liver when you first put something into your body, whether it's light or whether it's something that's not water. It triggers this enzyme, and the enzyme has a 12-hour shelf life. After that point, anything that goes into your body, nothing good happens to it. So if you can compound and squash down that time with where the enzyme's functioning from 12 to 11 to 10 and really reduce that, many benefits happen in your body. So we always say to people, you know, start at 12 and try and get down to sort of, you know, 8, then 6 and 4 and push the boundaries. And again, this it starts your body in that way of, you know, looking for energy elsewhere. And you can go outside, you can stare at the sunlight, you can sun gaze. There are many different things you can do to kind of start this process, but fasting, sun gazing are two of them. You know, I mean, you start to spike growth hormone levels. There's cellular regeneration, stem cell growth on an 18-hour-a-day fast. You start going to 20 hours and 22 hours. It's unreal. You start fasting for 2 days, 4 days. You start to get full body regeneration, like you know, it's unreal. You know, fasting is amazing, and we can live off of light. I'm not saying you should just stop eating, but we should start to go down that road and start that process. Mm-hmm. You know, and eating sun-drenched foods. You know, foods that have been bathing in light, you know, like fruits and vegetables and all of this stuff that's on trees and bushes.
Well, and I think too, what you're saying there, Jerry, is, you know, just more credibility to the importance of good eating and a plant-based diet, because there's one thing I've learned over time, and I happen to believe it, is the best genetic expressions we can get is through different foods and different plants, because that's what's going to more naturally, you know, kind of change and trigger our DNA to activate. And you know, I think it's interesting you talk about light gazing and things of that nature, because there is a movement out there in the past number of years for light gazing. And if you look throughout history, there's a history of fasting. You know, Jesus and a whole bunch of, you know, these ascended masters had fasted for a period of time. And the yogis, there's a history of sun gazing and living off the sun as well. So I can see that. I personally believe that our society and our cultures have been so conditioned to mass consume, and food is one of them. And that pollutes our body, which plugs up our energy, which makes our little synapses between cells and everything else that happen don't communicate properly, right? So I think that there's a lot to what you're saying in that. So yeah.
And I feel it's really important too that everybody really listens to the body. I mean, back in 2013-ish, I think it was, I went vegan for 6 years. And like, to start with, it was amazing. Like the first couple of years, my energy was just, I was flying. I go to the gym a lot and I train like a nutter. You know, I push the boundaries physically. And after a couple of years, I started to notice my body, it wasn't doing what it was doing before. And I still kept doing it. So I was like, I went vegan. I was like, I can't go back, you know, yeah. I put my stake in the ground, you know. And like, I like to stick to what I'm going to do, but my body started to suffer. And then one day I thought, you know what, I'm going to have some chicken. And I went out and had a little bit of chicken every day for a week, and I felt amazing. I didn't eat any chicken for like 6 months, but I then started to introduce things into my diet when my body wanted it. So if I want eggs, I'll give it to it. If I want salmon, I'll give it to it. But predominantly it's plant-based. But then if my body needs something and it feels like having it, then I give it. It's the same with supplements. If I go to the cupboard and I look at my supplements, I ask, you know, what do I need today? And it might be just these 2 today. And then tomorrow it might be these 3. You know, or one day it's none, and then another day it's like loads. Like, so my body has needs at different moments, and I think it's really important for everybody to listen and communicate with themselves and feel what their body wants.
So we've only got a few more minutes. I really want you to have the opportunity to share some of the offerings you have for people who are listening. I know you do meditation groups, you do private one-on-one healings. Just give us sort of an overview and let the listeners know how they can get in touch if they want to experience working with you.
Sure. I mean, the website is starmagichealing.com. Go to the website, you get access to all of our social media channels. You can download free guided meditation to have an experience. We have global meditations, which you can come and experience for free. We've got something called Infinity, which is like a monthly membership. where it's in American dollars, it's about $30 a month. You get access to hundreds of meditations, light language transmissions, light codes, cosmic yoga videos, nutrition, masterclasses, a whole heap of other tools. And the new ones are uploaded every single week, and we meet online regularly, and we gather, and we have some amazing times together. You can get that free for 7 days. You go and check out all the tools for free, see what you think of it. And if you like it, join. If you don't, no hard feelings. We've got trainings. We've got a level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4 training, because obviously we're training people to work in these healing centers. And our first healing center, we're in the process of creating it at the moment in Transylvania. So we're training people like fast and furious to work in these once they're up and running. So go and watch all the videos, check it out. If you've got questions, you can download the training prospectus. You can get free calls with our team. They will tell you all about it. And yeah, just come and get involved, see what you think. And like we were talking before the show, come and have an experience. Like, actually download the free meditation, listen to it, experience it, feel it. And then if you like it, it's for you. If it's not, then absolutely cool.
Mhm.
No love lost, we'll just get you a big virtual hug and see you another time somewhere in the ether.
I know you've said your vision is to create an unstoppable wave of love that cradles and inspires the entire human race. So how's it going with because part of it is these centers. So you're saying, why Transylvania, and where else will your centers be when you're?
Yeah, I mean, it's all in the book. We're going to build them in a number of locations. Maria, the South Point on the Christ Consciousness Grid, Portugal, the UK, America, South America, Ireland, Australia, like very.
Where's the Canada one going to be?
Not sure at the moment. Not sure. Yeah, like the way that we've bought 3 pieces of land at the moment. So we got 15 acres in Transylvania, which is the one we're in the process of developing. We should go to ground next year. We've got 49 acres in Madeira, which is the Portugal one. And we've got 8 acres in the UK, which is the UK one, which, will be at some point. And we're going to build 13, and they're going to be strategically placed in these countries. We don't know exactly where. Like it's really like the one in Madeira, like this bit of land. It was not even on the market. And what happened is a guy that had a brain tumor from Madeira. We did a few healings on him. His brain tumor went. The doctors had given him like 8 weeks to live, and 3 years later, he's still alive and kicking and fine. And he knew the president in this local town, and he phoned me up one day and said, "Listen, I know you want to build healing centers. I can get you this amazing piece of land, blah, blah, blah." So we went and met the president over there, and he said, "Listen, I'm going to build you a road into the land." He built us a 200-meter road to give us access. And so the universe has been giving us these bits of land on these sacred hotspots energetically in strange and mysterious ways. And so I just know that when it's time to, for us to be presented with the opportunities in these specific countries, they'll just be delivered, because everything else has just been happening that way. We haven't really had to think too much. We've just had to kind of just have a little bit of trust, because some of these situations have seemed a little bit bonkers and a little bit crazy. And if I thought about them, I would not have gone into them. I would have just been like doing something else, Yeah, my mind would have taken me on a completely different tangent.
Right. Well, we appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for joining us today. And good luck with everything with your cradle of love. I'm on board with that.
It was an absolute pleasure, and I'm just so grateful and honored to have been here with you guys. And I wish you all the love, luck, and happiness for whatever happens and unfolds in your worlds next.
Thanks. We've been speaking with Jerry Sargeant. He wrote a book called Healing with Light Frequencies, The Transformative Power of Star Magic. All the links are on our website, consciouslivingradio.org. I know Mark's got them up already. And
Yes, I do.
Yeah, enjoy the day, the rest of the day, or night in your case, Jerry. Sleep well.